Let's take a look at the technique that we're going to work on today. It's an Aikido technique. Can I borrow you something, Chris? We're going to start this technique called a bent elbow wrist lock from a same side wrist grab. This is our starting position. So from the starting position, my free hand is going to pin the wrist. So even if he lets go, we still have the same relationship. With the same side wrist grab, my initial movement's an outside circle. As I come over the top, it falls into a bent wrist position. The magic of bent wrists are that he cannot hang on. The original hand he grabbed is now free. Take a look again. It immediately hooks the crook of his elbow. And I bend the elbow while I maintain the bent wrist. And I stand right in front of him. Now I'm going to hook the top of his elbow to keep his elbow from rising up. This is an escape path. So I have the top blocked, and I backstop the end of his elbow so that I can compress, folding tightness at the wrist. So I'm going to move you this way. Yeah. Once we have the compression, my finger is going to start to reach down his body towards his toes. When I see the knee buckle, I know he's feeling a little zing. I need to know the tolerance to get the little zing. Take a look one more time, start to end. Pin, outside circle, escape hook wrist, square off, compress, and zing. So instead of same side wrist grab, we're going to do opposite side wrist grab. So that's the setup for this. Now, his arm is going to experience the same S shape, but I cannot do an outside circle. Instead, I must pin and do an inside circle. My hand is moving to the inside. As I move to the inside, my hand opens and I come over the top of his arm. My thumb joins my fingers. Now, once I reach the top position, my hand rotates and I'm going to try to grip his forearm with a hook. With the hook, it gives me some ability to control his forearm somewhat. And I'm going to hold his wrist tight to its position, move in front so his arm is in the S position. Now from here, my fingers dive down and my elbow goes up. And we see the knee buckle and the tap, and we know the technique is working. So if I remove myself, if you freeze your arm and I remove myself out of here, we've still created the same shape. One more time. Pin, inside circle, hook, thumb joins fingers to do the hook. This gives me the ability to move. If my thumb is here, it's harder. Step in front, hand goes down, elbow goes, hand goes down, elbow goes up. This way. All right, let's try it. Let's see, the next one is gonna be two hands grabbing my wrist. Yeah, this relationship here. So when we're in this position, it's hard, of course, to move. And I want to do the bent elbow wrist lock because that happens to be the technique of the day, right? So what's interesting is, as we start having movement, the natural desire for our opponent is to resist my movement. So if I bring my hands together, he's like, oh, I don't want you to do that. He's naturally going to try to pull my hands apart. So as I start to bring them together, he starts to pull them apart. I try to bring them together. He pulls them apart, and then he pulls them apart, and I go apart. I go with what he does. And so it's a very short movement, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to clap our hands together, and we're going to go on the outside and see if we can get to the top positions of the grab. So he's got me, clap, and go to the top position of the grab. Now, it doesn't matter. You can choose your favorite. I'm going to hand off one of his bent wrists to the opposite hand. My right hand's receiving. His wrist is already bent. I receive it. Since he's got a bent wrist, his hand's free. Hooks the elbow, and look familiar? Now we're into our joint lock. So he grabs, we clap, we go over the top, hand off, step right in and go for the technique. So one of the most common mistakes that people do, and it's not really a mistake, they're getting themselves like 70% there. They're doing a really nice job. They get to here, except they're not compressing at the wrist. So if this has a relaxed angle to it, and I got the elbow bent, but the wrist is not folded over completely, you just need more. It takes a lot of effort. But if I simply compress, and there's firm compression, and his arm is ready to start rising for tapping, you need very little here. So compression before lifting is very useful. Here's the next one. He's gonna do a hand to shoulder grab. Yes. So now I'm gonna take the opposite hand. So he's grabbing my left, I use my right hand, I'm gonna pin the wrist. This hand that pins his hand to my body is gonna pull on his arm. So now if I pull this way, what's his natural response? Is to fight back and pull, causing his elbow to bend, right? So he's pulling back this way. So I step, he pulls back. When he pulls back, I hook the elbow, manipulate the wrist as I come back. So now we're creating the S-shaped position. Now here's what I really want. The base of his wrist to be pressed up against my body. So I pull this in tightly to my body. And then I have my body do the work on my behalf by bowing. Because my body is applying the pressure, it has a lot more force to it. So the attack is here and we go back, so we can go forwards right into the position, pinning tight, and then lean forwards and apply the lock. When it comes to joint locks, there's the art of Aikido, which a lot of times is studying the art with another compliant partner. And it's beautiful, and it's a worthwhile study. But it kind of breaks down when you try to apply it practically against a resisting opponent. So that's the trouble Aikido has. But not everybody needs to study Aikido for that outcome. The techniques in Aikido have a place in self-defense. There's no doubt they have a place. But if you try to stay purely in the art of Aikido is where you kind of run into trouble. Because you're not really hitting anybody. We're just talking about that if I want to make this joint lock work, sometimes, if I can borrow you, Dustin. So if he does, let's say he does the grab on the shoulder, and then I try to do this, and he's just resisting. I'm like, it doesn't work. He's not complying. But if he grabs and I go bang, elbow to bicep, and he's got a nerve damage, and his arm goes numb because the Charlie horse, well, all of a sudden this is viable again, right? He grabs, and we're here, we go boom to the groin. He's like, oh, and then we go zing. We make him think about something other than what we're going to do. Then it might have a place. But more practically than that, in the heat of battle, where we're actually doing something, and he grabs the wrist and tries to control, and then I go boom, and I pick up the arm, and then all of a sudden I try to arm lock him, but then he resists, and then I'm like, oh, I'm in a familiar place. You don't try to do the joint lock on purpose. You're just doing battle, and the joint lock falls in your lap, and you're like, oh, I know where I'm at. It fell on my lap. I'm going to exploit this opportunity because here it is. Might as well. In my mind, that's the best place for joint locks in practical self-defense terms.